Howdy, folks, the Merv build. So I'm going to start by assembling the rear differential. Got the hot racing bulkheads, the hot racing differential itself, the outdrive cups for the Traxxas axles, the inside gears for that, corresponding bearings, shims, and also had to get the Traxxas 7080 kit. And why I needed to get that? Well, strictly for those two little tiny inner seals. So this is in no way a tutorial. So the first thing that I'm going to do is disassemble the differential itself with a 1.5 millimeter. Now with the differentials torn apart, I can break out my seals. I'm going to take these two small seals, put one in the gear side just by pressing it in like thusly. And I'm going to take the other one and press it in the other side of the housing. I have taken a small doblet of my differential fluid, placed it on the paper towel. Going to take one of the outputs and lube up the outside of this just a little bit. Then I'll take the output and insert it. Take one of my pins and put it through the input cup. Then take one of my gears and place it onto there. Making sure that the pin aligns with the gear. Now I can do the same to the other side. Now with the other side assembled, I can begin assembling the center of the differential. I'm going to take my cup and set it on my differential, aligning my screw holes. I'm going to take one gear and one pin and drop it into the differential. Continue with all three. Now with all three of my spider gears in place, I can begin to fill the differential with fluid. I want to fill the differential to just a little over 3/4 of the way. This varies just depending upon each individual person, but I'm going to drop some of this thick differential fluid in there. Going to let it settle a little bit and let it fall down into place. There's a number of different ways that you can do this, but with these differentials, I just put it into place and let it settle for just a minute. It's settled for a minute. Now I'm going to gingerly pick it up, holding the cup in place. I'm going to grab the output and lightly turn it very slowly. This gets the differential fluid down into the bottom of the cavities and also alleviates any air pockets that may be in there. Watching for the spider gears to be moving properly, and if they move up or try to come out, I gingerly press them down with my tool and continue to rotate it just a little bit. Then I'll set it back down and add any more fluid if necessary. I added enough fluid to hopefully it won't spill out when I put the other side on. Being as how these screws are going to be threading from metal to metal, I've also applied some Loctite to those. Now, this is simply the most difficult part of this job. Trying to place this onto the top and getting the screws started to hold it all together. At this point, I am not going to tighten the screws all the way down. I'm going to get everything lined up and torque it down evenly. Now with the differential assembled, I can take it off my pad and wipe off any excess differential fluid. Being as how I am using the metal shafts, I will not need these pins. On these pins, there is a large hole and a small hole. I'm not sure if I can show this to you or not. I will not need these pins. On these, there is a large hole and a small hole. Be aware of that and your pin size when assembling your differential. But the differential itself is all assembled and it does function properly. Very smooth. Now with my bearings lubed, I pull out the hardware kit. This includes 2 screws, a short one, a long one. It also comes with a number of shims. I cannot tell you the exact combination of shims that you will need. What I'll do is I'll take the 2 smaller bearings and place them onto the pinion. These will fall into a groove in the differential housing. I know that my gear needs to go this direction. And I have found that with some of the other ones that I've used 2 shims on this side, creating a minor preload on the pinion gear. Take my bearing and place it on that side. I'm going to try, and I don't know if it's good or bad, but I'm going to put 1 shim on this side and place my bearing in on that side. Now I can place the differential into half of the housing, pressing the bearing into the housing. If that doesn't work, make sure I retain my shims. Like I said, folks, this is not an instructional video. This is just how I am doing it. Now with the bearings in the housings, I can fit these together, making sure that the bearings fall into the groove on the other side. While holding the housings together, I can check my gear mesh. I'll now take the long screw, placing it towards the back end of the housing, and screw it in. Not going to be doing a final tightening, just screwing it in. I'm going to take my small screw and place it in the front. Now I can finish tightening this and check to see if everything spins properly. That is very tight, so I'm going to change my shim setup. Going back and forth with your shims to find out what your specific needs for each carrier is going to happen, or should happen, I should say. Again, I'm just now putting the screws back in loose at first before I tighten everything down. For this particular differential, it appears that I only needed one shim on the king side and no shims on the other side. Now, it spins very freely and there's virtually no binding. There is also the method where you can check your gear mesh by holding your king and trying to rock your pinion gear. And that feels about right to me. I did put fresh Loctite on my screws before I put them back in for this last time. And there's one other measure that I'm going to do that some people will not do. And I am going to take this absolutely fabulous Vanquish Products Blue Rock lithium grease, and I'm going to grease up my pinion and ring gear. Now this Blue Rock grease does not take much. And did I use it in excess? Yeah, more than likely. But this area is one area that I want to keep very well lubed, and you can see how stringy this stuff is. I've had very good experience with this Vanquish Blue Rock grease, and it coats very well. You can see the stringing coming off of the gears. The front and rear differentials are assembled identically. So you can use this as a general reference if you like. This is not an instructional video, but there is the rear differential for the Merv build. Thank you very much for watching. If you're interested in how the rest of this build comes out, please subscribe.